Okay, Be'ezrat Hashem. So now we continue with Perek Yud,
מקור חיים.
Pasuk. No, we did Yud Aleph. Pasuk Yud Bet. We did the Pitzadik. Yes, that is a source of it's a source of life. With Pasuk Yud Bet. Sin'ah.
Rabbi,
Yes.
sorry, just a quick question. What's the difference between Pasuk Dalet, which is Chacham Lev Yikach Mitzvot Ve'Ve'eser Vatim Yigvat, and then Pasuk Yud Aleph, Mekor Chaim Pi Tzadik U'Fi Rashaim Chesed Hamas. Like he talks about the mouth in 11 in the Pasuk Yud Aleph, and then in Het it talks about Chacham Lev as refers to the tzaddik, and then Ve'avir Sefatayim, and the one who has a. Is there any correlation?
Well, Chacham Lev Ikach Mitzvot is it? We spoke about the definition in last shiur, right? About what is a Chacham Lev? It's somebody that his chokhmah lives within his instinct. Yes, so he values the time, and he values the opportunity. Versus that pasuk Yud Aleph, Mekor Chaim Pi Tzadik, it's meaning the tzaddik, always the behavior of the tzaddik, not how he takes advantage of a situation, but the behavior of the tzaddik. The behavior of the tzaddik is that his mouth is Mekor Chaim, is a source of Chaim, because of his learning of Torah, because of his teaching of Torah, and his ability to value and appreciate moments of solitude where he can be more focused on himself and his growth and fixing himself, versus Chacham Lev, which is another facet. Yes, the nekuda is not on the definition of tzaddik, is on the definition of Chacham Lev. Yes, so one addresses the value of time and opportunity. The other one addresses the growth and development of the general behavior of a tzaddik. Does that clarify a little bit your question? Okay. Okay. Pasuk Yud Bet. Sin'ah teorer medanim. Hatred awakes disputes and discords and fights. Ve'al kol peshaim, and for all the averot and the faults, techase ahava, the ahava covers it. So the hate awakes, stirs, fights, and love covers up faults and errors and mistakes. Says the Gaon the following. Says the nature of man is not to fight right away on small issues. Somebody wrongs you, you're not going to fight right away. And at the first situation, you're going to blow up. But when that happens, an individual has two options. One option is to let that pain brew in the heart and develop hatred, sin'ah, but he keeps it in his heart. The other option, if the person cares and loves the person that hurt him, he will apply the love to wash off the disappointment. So when a person is hurt or disappointed by a behavior of someone, he's at a crossroad. How do I deal with this situation? Do I allow the pain to reside in my heart? And that, says the Gaon, translates into passive hate. Or do I have enough love to apply that love and wash it off my heart? And then I have a clean slate with the person. So says Shlomo HaMelech, Sin'ah, if you hold the grudge passively in your heart, te'orer medanim, what happens is that now the second time there is an error, the second time there is a dispute, the second time you get hurt, now the second time causes the emotional awakening of the first feeling and pain, and now the first pain is amplified by the second, and the second by the first. And eventually, this leads to a reaction of a machloket and a fight. And at that point, when there is a fight, what happens? The person doesn't fight only for what has been done, but he brings out everything from the past. It's like our wives. You do something and they're not going to tell you, look at what you did. No, they start, from Maaseh Bereshit. You remember when we were dating and what you said and what you didn't say and what you did, and at the wedding you didn't look at this one, and then during the Sheva Brachot you didn't do this, and right. So when you keep inside records, Dan, I'm good you have the earpiece. Derech Shalom. when
תפילת הדרך.
Yeah, תפילת הדרך. When you keep the grudge, says the Gaon, it sets the person up for a reaction of anger with that specific person at one point. And then all the arguments and all the events of the past come out. That's why he says, Sin'ah, when there's hate in the heart, te'orer medanim, it awakes dispute and discords, fights. So, says the Gaon, why does a person hold on to the grudge? It's because the person doesn't love. He says because he doesn't love the other person really. And this is found. Those disputes are found usually and very often between brothers, between siblings, where you see that there's deep love, and then it's rocky, and then when it blows up, right, the whole Sheshet Maaseh Bereshit come out. You're like, oh, what's going on here? Which means, according to the Gaon, there is a flaw of true love between the siblings. How can that be? How can that be? So Rabbeinu Bechaye tells us, and he learns that from Moshe and Aaron. We've spoken about it in the past. Rabbeinu Bechaye says that the nature of siblings, yes, believe it or not, is to end up hating each other. Passive hate. That's the passive hate that that Rabbeinu Bechai is talking about. It's not a hate to fight. It's a hate that he holds the grudge. He doesn't love. Yeah. So if you don't love and wash off the disappointment from your heart, then by default you hate, because that grudge stays in your heart. And he says, we see in the nature of siblings since the creation of man that we had issues. Cain and Abel. You have the same thing with the Bnei Noach. Then you have the same thing with Ishmael and Yitzchak. Then you have the same thing with Yaakov and Esav, the Shvatim and Yosef. And suddenly, for the first time in history of humanity, recorded in the Torah, you have something special, Moshe and Aaron. But Moshe, understanding the nature of siblings, when he is asked from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to go and lead the Bnei Israel, he refuses. He says, you know what? Give it to my brother Aaron. He's my oldest brother. What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu answer Moshe? Don't worry. Aaron is coming towards you and he's happy for you. For the first time, we see that an older brother is happy to see his younger brother thrive. And says Rabbeinu Bechaye, what is the reason siblings end up fighting when they should be loving each other? It's because they believe, they think that there are brothers, because they know they're brothers and there's the same brother and the same family, so they think that by default we love each other. And they don't work on developing that love. They don't work on developing that connection. And therefore, when interests and differences kick in, they realize how far apart they are from each other. And that's because they never worked to become one together. So the siblings, more than anybody else, and obviously the same thing it's in a couple, yeah. You must work to develop the ahava, because if you don't, the sin'ah that sits, and when you think about it, it's very logical, right? By who can you be hurt the most? By your siblings. Why? Because you live with them, you're exposed to them, you interact with them more than anybody else. And every individual is a world of its own. Everybody's different. Everybody's wired different. So the chances of getting hurt by one another is much greater than getting hurt by anybody else. So why don't we work on it? Because subconsciously, what do you mean? We're brothers. There's nothing to work on. We're brothers. We're brothers. Until the day that we're brothers is the reason why we don't talk. And then we see people not brothers and siblings not talking for 10, 20 years, Hashem Yishmo, and fighting each other. That's because they took for granted that they are close to each other, and they actually never worked to be close. And what it is the work that needs to be done? So that's what Shlomo HaMelech is coming to teach us here. He's saying something phenomenal. He says, Sin'ah te'orer medanim. If you let the grudge in your heart, right away when the situation of pain, of anger, of disappointment kicks in, if you let it sit, you're like, it's okay, I move on. No problem, you move on. But what did you do with the disappointment, with the pain, with the anger? What did you do with it? It's stored somewhere. It's not going to affect my behavior now. I still love my brother. I still love my friend. It's okay, but it's still stored. Says Shlomo HaMelech, you are now you're setting up yourself in this relation for a fight, for a discord. However, says Shlomo HaMelech, The person האוהב באמת את חברו, somebody that really loves his friend, then he applies practically על כל פשעים תכסה אהבה. No matter what the pesha is. What is pesha? We know when we do vidul, chatati, aviti, pashati. Pashati is when you do something limrod, leachis, when you do something to hurt and to show that you're rebelling. Is the highest level of sin a person can do towards Hashem. Is the most extreme expression of anger towards Hashem. Al kol peshaim, on these levels of hurt, techase ahava. The ahava can clean it, can cover it. This is how you apply love. And the Gaon says this yesod, we also learn it in Masechet Menachot, Daf Mem Aleph. The Gemara says like this: Lo me'anshinan a'aseh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not punish if you don't do a proactive mitzvah. There's no punishment. Aval be'idan ritcha, but in times of anger, ma'anshinan, the person gets punished. And the Gaon explains, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't punish for the aseh. You don't do aseh, you're not going to get punished. However, when you do a lo ta'aseh, when you sin and you transgress a lo ta'aseh, you do something you're not supposed to, now you awake the anger of Hashem. And when you awake the anger of Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, now that you awoke my anger, not only I'm going to punish you for what you were not supposed to do and you did, but I'm going to punish you for what you didn't do and you were supposed to do. So says the Gaon, what do we see from that Yesod in the Gemara? That everything essentially is recorded. The question is, do you apply love? And if you don't apply love, you apply hate. If you apply love, then what happens? הקדוש ברוך הוא מעביר על מידותיו, כן, ועל כל פשעים תכסה אהבה. Right? You're מעביר על מידותך, הקדוש ברוך הוא מעביר על מידתו also, right? הקדוש ברוך הוא forgives. When you do תשובה מאהבה, what does הקדוש ברוך הוא do? All the עבירות, it turns them into mitzvot. When so that's the power of ahava. When there is not ahava, the parve, HaKadosh Baruch Hu closes an eye. The parve means you don't do aseh, but you also don't do lo ta'aseh. When the person does lo ta'aseh, that awakes sin'ah.
So make sure I understood it correctly. If you're genuinely parve, it's okay?
If you what?
If you're genuinely parve, it's okay?
If you live a parvela, well, it's okay. It's okay. You're not punished, but you're on the hook.
No, in a specific situation with a specific person that you're close with.
No.
You don't get angry. You let it go, but you don't love genuinely, as it seems like you don't love it. You don't love them.
Yeah, no problem. So yes, that's when you're parve. But comes Shlomo HaMelech and tells you, today you're parve. But tomorrow you're going to have sin'ah.
Going to come out again later.
Yes, that's what Shlomo HaMelech is coming to teach us. So what is essential? So although you can be parve in the system, But come Shlomo HaMelech and tells us, even if today you're parveh, at the end you're not going to be parveh. You or there's sin'ah or there's ahava, or there's hate or there's love. It's a question of time.
So Shlomo Melech says there is no such thing.
There's no such a thing of parveh. No, there is parveh at that specific moment. But at the end, your relationship is all going to be with love or with hate. Or you're going to fight or you're going to love. It's such a powerful message. Because we can ask ourselves the question, how can I forgive and wash off someone that hurt me badly? How is that possible? The emet is that unless you love the person, you can't. Unless you love that person, you cannot. And this is what Chachamim say, ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha. You have to love, yes, your friend like yourself. Meaning, you need to and it's
the person did something to you.
Nachon.
Not out of love.
Nachon. Nachon, he hurt you.
Like
Nachon, the person got hurt. The person got hurt. You're right. Nachon,
we're going beyond nature here. We're talking a concept that's me'alateva here. This is not normal.
It's not, but this is what is expected from us. When we start the tefillah, what do we say every morning? And when we go to sleep, what do we say? נכון? הריבלי כמצוות תעשה, כן? ואהבת לרעך כמוך. והריני אוהב את כל אחד ואחד מבני ישראל כנפשי מודי. נכון או לא? We go to sleep, the same thing. הרי מוכר וסולח כל מי שחטא לקנני, בין בגופי, בין בנפשי, בין בכבודי, בין בכל השלבים, בין באונס, בין ברצון, בין משוגעים, בין מזים, בין מדיבור, בין מעשה. So, we wake up, and before we pray, we proclaim that we love everyone. And when we go to sleep, we're mochel everyone because we love everybody.
Yeah, we say it.
You're right. But again, this is what is expected from us. I agree with you. It's not something that is natural, and definitely not something that's easy. It's very challenging. But I want to tell you what's the benefit of it. If you don't educate yourself to love, then you are always going to hate. Then, because in every situation you'll hold a grudge, and meaning that every relationship you have is on the hook. So when the Torah tells us you need to love, the Torah is telling you, by educating, by applying that love, you live free. You live happy. But that person did something to me. En Adam nogea bidvar chavero afilu kimelo nima. Nobody can take away, nobody can touch you, nobody can hurt you unless HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows it. The fact that he's a shaliach is a problem. That's his problem. But if you have been hurt by someone, it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed it to happen. So that's where the emunah and the bitachon in Hashem kicks in. So the ahava, yes, can be applied if you have emunah, if you have bitachon in Hashem. Which means what? That if we don't apply the ahava, it's because we're lacking emunah. And if we lack the emunah, we open ourselves to sin'ah. You understand? So the avodat ha'ahava is also an avodah of emunah and bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's very hard to accept, I know, because we address it, and we address the concept from a place of that void. But how can I? The guy hurt me. Now, nobody says you have to stay close to that person and you have to bring in breakfast, in bed every day. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that you don't carry the pain and the disappointment in your heart that can lead to hate. But that doesn't mean you need to be close to that person.
So that doesn't mean we need to love them. It was going back to the question I just said. If we're genuinely parve, we really don't care and we let it go. Shlomo Melech is saying that there's no such thing. But if
at one point, yes, Shlomo Melech says at one point it's gonna blow up.
It's gonna
Listen,
blow up.
let me ask you a question. Between brothers, you genuinely let it go until one day you don't let it go anymore. I'm dealing. Yesterday, I was approached by a family of brothers that are now fighting, big fight, and the brother called me. I gave him millions. I gave this. I do this. I do that. I do this. I do that. And every time he hurts me, and he does to me, and he talks to me, and I don't want to have nothing to do. I don't. All these years, they were buddies. All the years when they were hurting each other, I genuinely let go. I let go, but it's still sitting inside. Yeah. It's a ticking bomb.
I think that Shlomo Melech is specifically talking, and I'm wrong, but specifically talking about people who are really, really, really close to you, brothers, siblings, spouses.
Kal vachomer them, yes. Kal vachomer them. The others that are far, yes, it's easy to be parve, right, because you don't really have
real
interaction with them.
Right.
But the ones that are close and that matter, these are the ones that even more you have to be careful.
Correct. I was thinking about the further ones that someone can really genuinely let go.
Says Shlomo HaMelech in the Kitvei Yad, he says, how do you draw upon yourself ahava from Hashem? He says the following: if you want to learn to love, he says, do mitzvot aseh. Why? Because when you do mitzvot aseh, you trigger, obviously you don't do the mitzvot lo ta'aseh because that's awake the sin'ah, right? But by doing mitzvot aseh, you awake Hashem's love on you. You bring the ahavat Hashem in you. So now you have within you the power of love to now love others and the ability to overcome any emotions that can haunt you. So it's amazing because on one end, by doing mitzvot aseh, you awake Hashem's love on you. And that now that you have the power of love of Hashem within you, now you can love. And on the other hand, what are we saying? We're saying if you want to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right, you have to also learn to love people, right? Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, yeah, is an extension of Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. By loving your sibling, then you also learn to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the Ramchal. So you see a full circle here. Like there's a full dynamic. But how does it start essentially? And if we want to be independent from any interaction with individuals, says the Gaon in the Kitvei Yad, when you do mitzvot aseh, the right way, obviously, not as a mechanically, then you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you. And I think this is what we mean when we say Leshem Yechud Kudsha Berichu Shchinteh. The Yichud, Ahava is Echad, right? Ahava is, the Gematria of Ahava is 13, is the Gematria of the word Echad. right? Leshem Yehud, right? When we are about to do mitzvah, we're connecting the Yud-Kei and the Vav-He, right? We're creating achva, achdut, ben the olamot, unity in the world, in the olamot, which essentially is the pipeline for the bracha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to come down for that specific action. This is Ahavat Hashem. This is the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you bring the HaKadosh Baruch Hu's blessing into the world, when you trigger the pipeline, you open the faucet of a pipeline to bring Hashem's blessings into the creation. That's how you love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, okay, if you allow me to reside in creation, then I reside without you, midah keneged midah. Yes, now my love is in you. So now you have the power to love. And how do you apply the power to love? From a surmera perspective, is by washing off the peshaim of people. Again, it's not the chatat, it's the pesha, the highest form of disappointment and pain.
Rabbi, if you work on that, right, and to achieve that level, which means that you, I guess the highest form is v'ahavta l'recha kamocha, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're gonna love, and through that love, that comes down to you as well. That you work on, you're full of love, and you don't hold any pesha. You have no, I guess, you don't have no hard feelings, but only love towards people. Then why is it then that why is it that there is the brother fight? Meaning, if
The answer
you're
is
going to
because they
work
don't
on it,
nurture, because they don't nurture that love.
but I'm saying if someone is working on himself to achieve that level, then isn't it a global level that he gets all across the board with any relationship and any friendship?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. But it's more exposed and tested with siblings than it is with strangers.
So it's the same recipe for success and love between each other, between the siblings. It's the same recipe across the board for friendship, for
For
siblings,
everybody.
for everybody.
That's right.
So it's working on your mitzvot aseh out of love.
Again, by the count is like this. By doing mitzvot aseh, right? When you do mitzvot aseh, what are you doing? You're connecting the worlds together, right? Spiritual worlds and physical worlds. And you bring down the abundance of Hashem, the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? So essentially, you bring down Hashem to the creation, right? And for that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves you, what does it mean? It means that His love is in you. That's what Hashem loves, what it means Hashem loves you. It's not that He gives you what you want. It's that now Hashem's love resides within you. And when Hashem's love resides within you, you now have the power, you have a supercharged power to now love others. So you have the ability, like a mashal, you put tefillin bekavana, you now have the ability to forgive and move on and wash off somebody that hurt you very much. Now, it's a tremendous beracha, think about it. Because carrying pain and disappointment and hurt is imprisoning yourself in that emotion. And it doesn't stop only at that person. People then extend that pain and that hurt around them on other relationships. Why is it that if somebody has a hard day at work, he comes home and he can just unload this anger on his family? And then oh, I'm sorry, I had a bad day today. How many times has that happened? Why is that? Because the nature of the sin'ah, yes, the nature of the anger radiates. The same way the love radiates. It radiates. So yes, it's true. It came from one specific individual, but by carrying it, you're exposing that hate around you. That pain is felt by everybody. So essentially, yes, by developing the ahava, this is the biggest freedom you can have. Like the biggest simcha you can have is to live without any hurt, any pain. That nobody can touch you, essentially. Nobody can hurt you, no matter what they do. Okay, maximum, they gave you a slap or they took from you something. But inside of your neshama, they didn't take nothing. You're still free. This is a very high level. This is a tremendous, tremendous lesson. And to apply it, the Gaon tells us a beautiful segula. Have kavanah when you do the mitzvot, aseh, to bring upon you the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm telling you, this hidush is worth a seudat mitzvah. I'm like it's words, but it's not words. This can change one's life completely. It's focusing on the light and never allowing darkness inside of you. Why do people become depressed, angry, bitter? Because of that sin'ah that they nurture within them. And what is the biggest magnet to negativity? The sin'ah, right? This pain, this darkness that you carry within you. And exactly the flip side. If you nurture love and you develop love, what are you? You become a magnet of beracha, a magnet of good. And eventually, the person that hates you is going to end up, or hurt you, is going to end up loving you. And now I'm thinking, now I understand what the Rav Hida says. The Rav Hida says the following, as a segula: if you feel that somebody gives you ayin hara, bless them. What do you mean bless them? Show them that you love them. That's how you neutralize the negative energy. Because when you have the ahava within you, you neutralize all negativity around you, even the one that's targeting you with ayin hara. That's the Rav Hida. I'm telling you, this is yesod atzum, incredible yesod.
Rabbi, can I ask you if you want to, if someone hurts you, like we spoke about, do you have and you want to let it go, you want to move on, done, right? But you're forced to forget about that instinct. Are we required? I mean, should you forget about it?
Nobody
Or
says you have to forget.
Right. So that was my question. Yeah. We don't have to forget, but
I'm not saying that you have to forget, but you have to forgive. You have to wash off. You have to wash it off. There cannot be a bad feeling. Whatever the facts are registered, but the feeling, there's no more feeling. That's deleted.
Rabbi, but if you remember, how could you forgive? Like, meaning
That's
if
the
you
ahava.
forgive,
That's what ahava does.
only but it's
That's
difficult.
what the ahava does. I'm going to explain you. It's a very good question. We have the ability, and your question is a natural question, is a very legitimate question, and I'll explain why. You just open a Pandora box, but it's good. Every individual, since they are born, identify themselves with their instinct and their emotions. Okay? That's what Chachamim says. Yud Gimel Shana Kadam Yetzer Hara leYetzer HaTov. The Yetzer Hara is 13 years older than the Yetzer HaTov. What does that mean? That you have enough da'at, you have enough chokhmah, okay, to start being a bar mitzvah at the age of 13. Machloket, is it something that just pops into you when you're 13, or did it develop enough and matured enough at the age of 13 that now you have bar da'at? But either way, for 13 years, you have the Yetzer Hara. Says the Ran in the Drashot, it's the instinct, it's the midot, right? You grow, How do you interact? How do you identify yourself? By your midot, by your traits, by your instinct. This is who you are until a certain age. That at that point you need to recognize that there is something else defining you. It's your da'at. And as you develop the da'at and you define yourself through the da'at, you realize that you are not your emotions, and you are not your instinct, and you are not your midot. They are traits given to you to interact and behave, but they don't define you. So at that point, says Rabbi Yerucham Halevi, you start detaching yourself from the instinct and the emotion, and recognize that the emotions are not you. Which means that, going back to the Chacham Lev, right? If by infusing your instinct and your emotions with Chokhmah, your instinct becomes your own Chokhmah, right? So that means that they are distinctive, the two. One can live without each other. Yes, you can live all your life with your instinct, with never using your chokhmah, or you can live through your chokhmah by suppressing and molding and educating your instincts. Yes, but the two of them can be disconnected. Your question comes in because you or anybody else, if you don't work on disconnecting the two, then who are you? You are what your instinct. What do you mean? It's if it's in me, if it's in my memory, then automatically it's in my heart. You're right. You're right. This is the default behavior of humans. Yes. Ayen Shmone Prakim Rambam, the first Pirkei Rambam there in the 8 chapters of the Rambam speaks about it. The Yarbet Sfaradi speaks about it in his Chek on the Nefesh. All this is true, right? That the more an imagination or an idea triggers the emotion that comes with it. That's only when you store that emotion and pair it, that is paired to the action as it is. That's the sin'ah we're talking about. However, when you apply ahava on it, automatically, when the thought comes, even if there is an association to a sentiment of pain, there is also an association to the ahava that you applied on that pain. And the last thing that's recorded in your nefesh, in your subconscious, is the ahava that you applied on the pain that was caused. So that's why it says mechase. Mechase is to cover. It doesn't mean to erase completely. Yes, there was a little pain. There was pain somewhere, tremendous pain, but it was covered right away with love. This is how I dealt with the situation.
Is that a forgiveness?
Yes. How do we know this? HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgives. Yes, but the chet is still there. Now, that's Teshuvah Mi'irah. Teshuvah Me'ahava, it turns the hate into love. But that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yes? Now, the only thing you can do, and in this pasuk, that's what this pasuk addresses, yes? Is that when there is a disappointment, if you love be'emet, or have be'emet, not if you have the true love, al kol peshay mechase ahava, the love covers. There's a layer, there's a membrane, there's a layer of love that comes and stops the radiation of the ahava, of the sin'ah.
Are there certain actions that are just not forgivable? Or do we need
we find Reshaim that the opposite, that we have an obligation to rebuke, and we have an obligation to get away from, and we have an obligation to pay, to even hurt. Amalek, you never forget. For example, Amalek, mitzvah la'arvo. We've seen in the first book of Mishlei, the first 9 prakim, many times, where if you have there's a behavior of a rasha, yes, you cannot get you cannot forgive, and you have to act upon it. And then you have those that you have to get away from. We spoke about it. Now we're addressing. Keep in mind, this is not about the other. This is about you. Shlomo HaMelech in this pasuk is talking about how you should live. He's not talking about your relationships. So amongst the relationships you should have, that you have, and that are important and valuable and critical to your life, these relationships you need to apply the ahava. But those that are not worthy of a relationship, they're out. We're not talking about them.
Very, 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 very loaded. It's a very loaded concept.
Nachon.
A spouse, a brother, a sister does something unforgivable. There are things like that occur, that can happen.
So we find, and that's why we see for example, in the Torah, there's a concept of a get. There are things that cannot be forgiven.
You love them, but it's just not a normal thing to just forgive.
So you're right, and there are sometimes, some listen, Yaakov, okay, shied away from Esau. There are situations where you cannot be close.
He probably did love him, though.
Really, there was love. But
love, but we need to separate.
Nachon. But love, but we are far. That's how we love each other.
You live your life, I live my life. We love each other, but you want to do different things.
Nachon. There are circumstances that are like that. True, also, yeah, very true. There are circumstances where you must do that. We find situations where you must do that. Emet. No, that's what I'm saying. Only the individuals that are critical and worthy of a relationship in your life
that's
should.
It's very deep.
It is very deep. Emet.
Wow. Use your love that you have for this person, even though they hurt you, to keep the peace between you, but separately. Apart from it.
Yes. Emet.
Two brothers that live near each other. We need to go away because we love each other, and staying close will just cause more problems.
Correct. Nachon. It depends on the nature of the relationship. Absolutely. Because not everybody is wired the same. It's not because you're born, from the same father and mother that means that you need to be on top of each other. And sometimes that's the problem. It's because people think that because we're brothers and sisters, we must stick together when you're not supposed to. You guys don't coexist together well. So you're better off being apart. And when you're together, it's moments of love and care. And when there's a need, one is there for the other. But to each their own. And sometimes, no. Sometimes the brothers need to be together and they need to be hand in hand. Depends, right? It depends on the...
Black.
So, Bezrat Hashem, I think we're going to... I was thinking of doing that. I think it's a beautiful pasuk as it is. And it resonates deeply. So we'll stop at this pasuk.
We haven't done one.
Yes.
We haven't had one whole shiur for one pasuk in a while.
Yeah, right.
Rabbi, could we talk about love, ahava, what the meaning is? Later or tomorrow?
The definition of ahava, to love, is to give, to sacrifice yourself for the other and what's good for them. That's how you apply love.
Okay.
Yes, it's a very deep concept, ahava. It's not one shiur on the, what does it mean, ahava. In this specific pasuk, to love the somebody else is to be ready to sacrifice yourself and the pain and whatever emotion you've been exposed to, in order to allow the other person to still exist in your life. That's love in this concept. That's how love is manifested in this pasuk.
There's many different ways. We just touched one briefly of how you can allow that person to coexist in your life.
Nachon. But everybody agrees that if you love them, yes, then you as an individual need to overrule the emotion, the pain. After that, how that person coexists, it's a different story. But by doing that, you still allow that person to be part of your life, far or close.
One way or another. Whichever way.
But the application of the love is to sacrifice yourself in order to allow the other person to exist in your life. That's the way the love manifests itself in this pasuk. Very deep, very deep. Tov be'ezrat Hashem. Yud bet. Pasuk Yud bet, Baruch Hashem. Any other questions?
Well, if you move away to keep that relationship so that you're there when you need to be for each other, does that mean you didn't achieve the proper level of ahava?
It depends. If you're running away or if you're forced to create a distance. It depends on the situation.
No, you're forced to create the distance. So you say, I'm going to move
If you're
out
forced
of the
to create the
country.
distance, no. This is the definition of ahava.
That's
the opposite.
true love.
The opposite is that if you have to be distant from that person, right? So essentially that person could be out of your life. But because you love that person, right? You apply that love in order to allow that person to be far, but not out.
What if you do it for selfish reasons?
Then that's not ahava.
But does that mean that the other person did not achieve that level of ahava the same way you did? And that's why there's still
we
the
haven't
distance?
addressed the other person at all. The
No,
other person is
talking about us.
completely irrelevant in that equation.
Right. So then why, if you have to create the distance to keep the love, then how's the ahava there? Meaning
The fact
nothing
that
person is going to do.
the other person doesn't have to love you for you to love them. You need to be a loving machine. You need to be a loving individual.
So then what does that mean to have to move away to keep the love? If I have endless love, then I don't care what person, then you're going to say, I don't care what that person does.
It depends.
Because I will be the lover.
It depends. No, because sometimes the interaction is toxic. So if we understand that the interaction is toxic, then it's not good. Yes. Now, two things can happen. Or we cut because we're toxic to each other. Okay. Or we're far away so that there is enough interaction not to be toxic, but not too much to start hurting each other. Now, a person that loves that's what he will do. Now, again, we're only talking about individuals that are worthy to be part of your social circle, of your life. The ones that must be out, then they must be out. Yeah, and it doesn't take away any of your love. It's just you cannot have these people in your life. It's just a reality. This has nothing to do with love at that point.
Right. I get it. You can have the love, but they're just not healthy to be around, or the toxic, the drama, whatever it is. But there's something there.
That's right.
I thought Yaakov and Esav were a great
example
for us to understand, Dan. The concept. Yaakov didn't hate him. He moved away because if he stayed, it would have been terrible.
Right. It would have been bad for his kids. It would have been bad. It was toxic for right.
Toxic. But then when they saw each other,
There was love.
they decided, hey, we're gonna stay on opposite sides. You go there and I go here for peace. They did that out of what? Because they hated each other, or because they wanted to really live and not kill each other and have each other live their own separate peaceful lives?
Esav hated Yaakov. But Yaakov didn't hate Esav.
Amazing. It's a difficult
Bezrat
concept,
Hashem.
but it's fantastic.
Phenomenal. Tov.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Rabbi, can you stay on for 1 second?
Sure. בהצלחה.
תודה רבה.